The Stone Age. The first weapon in human history was never invented. It was picked up. A rock. No design, no intention. Just a hominid hand closing around something heavy and doing what came next. Archaeologists have found skulls dating back over 1,000,000 years with fractures that only come from one thing: repeated, deliberate strikes. Early humans were killing each other long before they had language to describe it. Then the rock got smarter. Around 1.7 million years ago, early humans began chipping flint into hand axes. Two sharp edges, a point, shaped by choice. That act of shaping a weapon on purpose separated humans from every other species on the planet. The hand axe held that position for over 1,000,000 years. Nothing replaced it. It was just that effective. The spear came next, a sharpened stone bound to the end of a long stick. Killing distance doubled overnight. A hunter no longer had to close to arm's length to land a fatal strike. Then came the bow that finished what the rock started. Silent, accurate, at 30 meters, and reloadable. The bow was the Stone Age's final answer. Every weapon built after it was just a faster version of the same idea. The Bronze Age. Stone had a ceiling, and around 3000 BCE, humanity hit it. The problem was simple: stone chips, shatters, and dulls. You can sharpen it, but only so many times. Bronze changed that. A copper-tin alloy that could be melted, poured into a mold, and cast into any shape a weapon maker could conceive. Longer blades, curved edges, hollow sockets. Forms that stone could never hold without breaking. The sword was born here. Early bronze swords weren't built for slashing. They were narrow, stiff, and pointed, designed for thrusting through gaps in an opponent's guard at close range. One precise strike to the torso. The wound didn't need to be large. It needed to be deep. But the Bronze Age's most devastating weapon wasn't held in one hand. The war chariot, a lightweight wooden platform pulled by two horses, gave archers a moving firing position that infantry simply couldn't respond to. Egyptian and Hittite armies used it to launch volleys of arrows at 40 kilometers per hour into formations of soldiers who had no way to chase, no way to close the distance, and nowhere to go. On the ground, the phalanx made the spear deadlier than any individual weapon. Soldiers locked shields, moved as one mass, and drove forward with spears extending 2 meters beyond the front line. The weapon and the formation were inseparable. One without the other was just a man holding a stick. The sling finished the ranged picture. A trained slinger could hurl a lead projectile the size of a walnut at over 100 kilometers per hour, accurate enough at 50 meters to target a specific man in a formation. Then comes the weapon that closed the Bronze Age at full force: the composite bow. Built from layers of wood, horn, and animal sinew bonded with hide glue, it stored more energy than any simple bow and released it in a fraction of a second. The Bronze Age ended around 1200 BCE in a collapse historians still can't fully explain, but the weapons it produced didn't disappear. They just got sharper. The Iron Age and Classical Antiquity. Bronze built armies. Iron democratized them. The shift mattered because iron ore was everywhere. Mountains, riverbeds, open ground. Any kingdom with a furnace and fuel could now arm thousands of soldiers with weapons as deadly as those carried by the wealthiest empire on Earth. The military advantage that bronze once gave the rich, gone. Rome understood this faster than anyone. The Roman pilum was a javelin engineered with one specific, brutal intention. Its iron shank was designed to bend on impact. So when it struck an enemy's shield, it locked in and dragged the shield down, leaving the soldier exposed. You couldn't pull it out. You couldn't throw it back. In the seconds it took to drop the shield, a Roman soldier was already closing the distance. What closed that distance was the gladius, a short iron sword, roughly 60 centimeters long, designed entirely for stabbing in tight formation. Not elegant, not ceremonial, just fast, compact, and lethal in a crowd where a long blade becomes useless. Rome also took warfare vertical and underground. Siege towers, battering rams, and the ballista, a torsion-powered bolt launcher accurate enough at 100 meters to target individual soldiers on a wall. Then comes the weapon that ended this era on fire: Greek fire, a liquid mixture deployed by Byzantine naval forces through pressurized bronze tubes mounted on warships. It ignited on contact with water. It stuck to wood, to rope, to skin. Entire enemy fleets burned while sitting on the sea. Rome crumbled in 476 CE, but the weapons it left behind didn't. The Middle Ages, the medieval period, was one long arms race between the weapon and the armor protecting against it. Plate armor got better. Weapons responded. Armor improved again. That loop drove nearly every military innovation for 1,000 years and produced some of the most deliberately cruel weapons in human history. The halberd solved the knight problem first: a 6-foot pole with an axe blade on one side, a spike on top, and a hook on the back. That hook existed for one purpose: to catch a mounted knight by the armor and drag him off his horse. Once he hit the ground in full plate, he couldn't get up fast enough. A peasant with a halberd could neutralize a knight worth 10 times his economic value in under 30 seconds. The flanged mace went further. Plate armor could deflect a blade. It could not absorb a concentrated strike from a weapon designed to transfer crushing force straight through metal and into bone. Commanders carried it. So did bishops. Church law restricted them from drawing blood, and the mace technically didn't. Then came the crossbow. It sat alongside the longbow as its deadlier, slower rival. In 1139, Pope Innocent II banned it against Christian soldiers, not because it was ineffective, but because an untrained peasant could now kill a trained knight from 200 meters away. That terrified the feudal class more than any army. Gunpowder arrived in Europe quietly through Silk Road trade routes. Then in 1453, Ottoman cannons fired stone balls weighing up to 400 kilograms at the walls of Constantinople, walls that had stood for 1,000 years. They came down in weeks. The Middle Ages didn't fade. They were blown apart. The early modern period. Gunpowder didn't just change weapons. It made every weapon that came before it irrelevant. The process was gradual, then sudden. China had mounted gunpowder tubes on spear shafts as early as 950 CE, the fire lance. It sprayed burning debris at close range, equal parts flamethrower and psychological weapon. Terrifying. Still fundamentally a spear. The arquebus changed that. A handheld firearm with a matchlock mechanism, it could drive a lead ball through plate armor at 50 meters, something no crossbow bolt could reliably do. Armies across Europe adopted it within decades. The age of armor ended not with a dramatic battle, but with a manufacturing decision. If a weapon can pierce your protection, the protection stops being worth carrying. The problem was reload time. 45 seconds between shots minimum. In that window, an enemy closed ground fast. Pike and shot warfare was the solution. Musketeers and pikemen operated as a single unit. The gunmen fired, the spearmen held the line during the reload. Two weapons from completely different centuries working in rotation on the same battlefield. It lasted over 100 years. The cannon settled the question of fortification permanently. Medieval walls absorbed crossbow bolts and siege stones. Iron cannonballs at high velocity didn't breach walls. They shattered them. Coastal navies built warships with 2 rows of cannons firing simultaneously from both sides, capable of reducing another vessel to wreckage in a single broadside exchange. Then the flintlock arrived, a spring-loaded flint striking steel to ignite the charge. Reliable, fast, and compact enough for a cavalryman to fire from horseback. The pistol became a viable sidearm. Dueling culture followed. So did the question that would consume the next era entirely. If one man could kill another this efficiently, what could a machine do? The industrial age. For the first time in history, weapons could be manufactured faster than soldiers could be trained to use them. Factories ran day and night. Steel replaced iron. Precision engineering replaced the blacksmith. The battlefield became a production problem, and the side with the better factory won. The first sign of what was coming was a bullet, the Minié ball, a conical lead projectile with a hollow base that expanded into a rifle's grooves on firing. It tripled accurate range overnight, from 75 meters to over 270 meters. Commanders in the American Civil War still ordered infantry charges designed for smoothbore muskets. Their men were now carrying rifles. The result was slaughter on a scale that shocked even the generals ordering it. The revolver followed. 6 shots from a single handheld weapon without reloading. Samuel Colt patented the design in 1836. Within 2 decades, it was carried by cavalrymen, settlers, and officers across 3 continents. The torpedo arrived at sea, a self-propelled underwater explosive that could be launched from a small vessel and sink a warship worth millions. Wooden navies had already been made obsolete by ironclads. The torpedo made the ironclad something to fear from below the waterline. Then comes the Gatling gun. Richard Gatling's rotating barrel design fired 200 rounds per minute in 1862, a rate no infantry line could survive advancing against. 1 operator, 1 weapon, the killing power of 50 rifles. Barbed wire completed the picture. Invented for livestock in 1873, it found its way onto battlefields within a generation. Cheap, fast to deploy, and brutally effective at stopping an infantry advance cold while the machine guns repositioned. Alfred Nobel watched all of this and invented dynamite in 1867. He believed an explosive powerful enough would make war unthinkable. He was wrong. It just made the next war bigger. The World Wars. Everything built in the industrial age arrived on the same battlefield at the same time. Nobody was ready for what that meant. On July 1st, 1916, British commanders ordered infantry advances across open ground at the Somme. German MG-08 machine guns fired 500 rounds per minute. By the end of that single day, 57,470 British soldiers were casualties. The tactics were a century old. The weapons were not. At the time, the trenches created a new problem. 2 armies dug in, neither able to advance. The solution was poison gas. On April 22, 1915, German forces released 168 tons of chlorine gas at Ypres. Mustard gas followed, absorbed through skin, through clothing. It blinded first, then blistered from the inside out over days. International treaty banned it while the war was still being fought. The tank broke the stalemate. The first time German soldiers saw one emerging from morning fog at the Somme in September 1916, entire units retreated without firing a shot. U-boats hunted Allied supply convoys beneath the Atlantic. At their peak in 1942, German submarines were sinking ships faster than they could be built. But none of these weapons would define the future. That came next. The nuclear age. August 6, 1945. The Enola Gay released Little Boy over Hiroshima from 9,400 meters. 70,000 people died in the first minutes. The shockwave flattened 13 square kilometers. Japan surrendered 23 days later. The V-2 rocket had already changed everything. The world's first ballistic missile, traveling at 5,760 kilometers per hour. Too fast to intercept, too fast to hear coming. Every nuclear delivery system built during the Cold War traced its design back to it. On the other hand, the Soviet Union tested the Tsar Bomba on October 30th, 1961. 50 megatons. The mushroom cloud reached 67 kilometers high. Windows shattered 900 kilometers away. Both superpowers now held weapons capable of ending civilization. Neither could use them. The entire military strategy of the world's two most powerful nations reduced to one concept: mutually assured destruction. For the first time in 3 million years, the deadliest weapon ever built was the one nobody could fire.